People should be able to choose. I'm not saying that people can use this.
Mr. President, as the board directed, we have a brief staff presentation to go over the basics of the legal obligation, district's legal obligation to fluoridate the water. I'll handle the first 3 slides, just to introduce the subject, and then I'll hand it over to Mary Casey, the district counsel, and to Tom Berliner, district's consulting attorney. So with that, my first slide, I just wanted to go over a few interactions that we had with the public, and I put down some dates on that slide. And interestingly, we've been engaged in the subject from February of this year to today. Almost, we have been doing this for the whole year. On February 7th, I and senior staff met with Mary Larkin. That's where this journey began in February. And on March 19th, board listened to approximately 30 members of public speak about fluoridation during public expression time. And then on April 16th, board again listened to a presentation to Dr. Paul Connett. And on May 17th, the district operations committee listened to a presentation by staff and Dr. Howard Pollock, UCSF professor of dentistry. And on July 19th, at another DOC meeting, district operations committee meeting, we listened to a presentation by Donna Stroh. And on August 16th, I and senior staff again met with 10 members of public to discuss this matter. And on September 3rd, board directed staff to present the district's legal obligation to fluoridate our drinking water supply. So here we are with that discussion. And also, both Donna Stroh and Mary Larkin had a chance to visit our water quality lab yesterday.
Yes, and Jason was very accommodating. He's a good speaker.
Very good, thank you.
Good tour guide.
Very good. I wanted to go through some general fluoridation statistics. As of today, 18,400 community water systems in the United States provide fluoridated water, which translates to about 204 million people receiving fluoridated water, roughly 66% of our population. And agencies fluoridating water in California include Contra Costa Water District, San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, Metropolitan Water District, East Bay Municipal Utilities District. And I wanted to emphasize one other aspect. District's water meets or exceeds all federal and state drinking water quality requirements. With that, I will pass on to Mary Casey.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Tom Berliner and I will be taking you through the district's legal obligation as we see it to fluoridate the water supply. I just want to introduce Tom to the members of the public. Tom is I think he has more decades of municipal and water law experience than I do, and I have 3. Tom worked at the PUC in San Francisco and has statewide experience on all kinds of water matters. He's instrumental in assisting us with our partners in the north and our contracts. He assists us with all kinds of water-related matters, and I want to thank him for helping us with this one also. So I'll be taking us through the first few slides, the first few legal slides. In 1972, the voters placed an initiative on the ballot, which was Measure B. Measure B asked the question, shall an ordinance providing for the fluoridation of the district's water supply be adopted? The 1972 ballot pamphlet contained the proposed ordinance, which is the district's current ordinance. District voters approved Measure B. However, in 1978, the board decided to place its own measure on the ballot, which was Measure D, and asked the voters whether the ordinance adopted in 1972 should be confirmed. That is, should the district continue fluoridating the water? And the district voters again said yes. They approved Measure D. Under the Elections Code, Section 9323, I refer to that section of the California codes as the Equal Dignity Statute. What that means is that whenever a ballot measure or an initiative is adopted by the voters, only a matter of equal dignity, a matter approved by the voters, can overturn a law enacted by the voters. No legislative body in California has the legal authority to unilaterally overturn a vote of the people. So even if Measure D was overturned by the electorate, the district would still have to fluoridate its water supply under the provisions of the Health and Safety Code. Health and Safety Code, Section 116410, requires public water systems with 10,000 customers or more to fluoridate their water if the natural levels of fluoride in their water are below the minimum levels established by California regulations. Health and Safety Code 116415 exempts certain public water systems with 10,000 customers from the requirement of fluoridating the water if they do not have outside sources of income to pay for the costs of fluoridation. Outside sources are defined by the statute as sources other than ratepayer fees. In the district's case, the annual cost of fluoridating the water supply is about $100,000, and the district receives about $1 million per annum in antenna rent revenues. Therefore, Tom and I believe that under the Health and Safety Code, even if Measure D were overturned, the district would still be required to fluoridate the water supply because we have outside sources of income to pay the cost of fluoridation.
Members of the board, good evening. You asked me to take a look at California authorities as to whether there are any cases out there, or federal cases for that matter, that have given the district any sort of leeway with regard to its compliance with the Health and Safety Code and the elections that were held previously within the district that mandated fluoride. There actually turned out to be a case on point in the city of Watsonville. In 2002, a Measure S was proposed on the ballot in Watsonville to prohibit fluoridation. The city, in response to the will of its people, defended that ordinance and went to court in order to uphold it. In 2006, the California Court of Appeals says that the state law that Ms. Casey has referred to preempts any local measure that would seek to void the obligation to fluoridate water. So the court held that whether enacted or not, Measure S in Watsonville would have been void and without any effect. In other words, the court said a municipality that is mandated under the Health and Safety Code, under the criteria set forth there, must fluoridate its water if it has the funds in order to do so. There was another case cited around the same time that was from the city of Escondido. That case took a little different posture. In that case, citizens sued the city, seeking to overturn the city's fluoridation plans, and they also sued the Department of Health Services, and in essence contended that the fluoridating water was violative of their civil rights or injurious to their health. In 2004, the trial court ruled in the city's favor and upheld the city's mission to fluoridate its water. And in 2005, the Court of Appeal upheld the trial court and said that the city of Escondido had the right to fluoridate its water. So in light of primarily the Watsonville case, the district really is not in a position to take a stance that says we will not follow state law. State law is a mandate on the district and has a provision that says that in the event that the district were to violate state law, the Attorney General has the right to bring a mandamus action to compel the city or the district to comply with the state law. I think that concludes my analysis.
board?
I guess I'll just make a quick comment, which is that, oh, I'm sorry. I'll just make a quick comment, which is that I appreciate this clarity. There's been a lot of back and forth about the legal obligations, so I don't know that there's any new information here, but I think this has been laid out in a very helpful and clear way, so I'm going to thank council for that.
If I recall, the purpose of putting this on the agenda tonight was to some extent to respond to the community's request for an opportunity to have a full discussion as well as potentially to hear from ourselves. So while I don't have questions, I am prepared to make a simple statement myself, and it's made some comments in the past. And I wanted to say to the community that I thank you for the amount of time that you have given us to bring information to us. You have moved me in the sense that I was supportive completely of fluoridation previously. I've moved a little bit in that. I would say that while I'm not prepared to judge specialists and scientists about the medical safety of fluoride, I do question the just the idea of adding anything to water. And
Garbage already.
The one thing that I would add, though, is that I remain completely clear that the district is legally obliged to fluoridate. I take the votes of the 1970s as being sacred. We have to uphold those votes. And I'm completely clear that we're subject to the state law as well. So I do not see any alternate action for the district. Thank you.
And I guess the message to take away from this is that your efforts should be aimed towards Mark Levine and the Assembly. If you wish to move this forward, it does no good really to speak to us about this because our hands are tied. So keep that in mind, and I hope that you flavor your presentation with that in mind. I'll remind you that we have heard this before. It was a doc meeting with a full presentation from Ms. Stroh. So let's hopefully keep that in mind and keep this thing rolling. Are there questions from the audience?
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to address what was in the presentation about hydrofluorosilicic acid, that it's not actually the fluoride that the people voted for in the impermissibly vague language that they voted for, nor does the state of California in AB 733 require that you put in hydrofluorosilicic acid. Neither languaging says to put in what the toxin that you're putting in.
No, we're not going to address that.
Well, can I maybe that, I think our lawyer here, I think that is a useful, I think Lisa, and I just want to not repeat anything Lisa said, but just agree with all of it. Thank you for being so articulate. I think Lisa has expressed my position exactly as well, so thank you for those comments. But I think we do have the opportunity, we have counsel here, and I think the point of having this meeting is to have that kind of a dialogue. Donna, I may just, I don't know how you want to proceed, and Donna just sort of ask the question, but I think that's fundamentally a legal question, and I don't know, Tom, if you're prepared to answer that today. About what the extent to which either the state statute or the ballot measures address the specific additive that has been raised in Ms. Stroh's presentation.
Yeah, I can address it.
Okay, great. If
The staff.
one lawyer has been another?
We kind of, there's a division of labor here. We tried to equally divide all this, but this was part of mine, and it's addressed in the staff report on page 5. And basically, the Measure D authorized, I have it right here. It says the general manager is authorized and directed. This is 2.40010. The general manager is authorized and directed forthwith and continuously hereafter to take the necessary steps and means to add sufficient amounts of an approved fluoride compound to all water served to consumers in the Marin Municipal Water District, to produce and maintain as nearly as possible at all times in all parts of the water distribution system a concentration of fluoride equal to the concentration recommended by the United States Public Health Service and approved by the California State Department of Public Health. So that's measure D. And then we have to look to who regulates fluoride. Fluoride is regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974, which authorizes the EPA to set standards for MCLs.
Can
California.
you just be clear for those people who may not be that familiar with the safe drinking water, about what an MCL is?
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
Sure.
The maximum contaminant levels, which at the federal level is 4 mg per L. California regulations set the maximum contaminant level for fluoride at 2 mg
So
slash
four-
L.
So two,
Parts per
Milligrams per
million.
liter per
Yeah,
million.
and the district's, the fluoride in the district's water supply is 0.9 mg slash L, so
below.
well below. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is considered an additive. The state of California regulates additives, which are chemicals or products added to drinking water. California Regulation 64590 requires that any chemicals or products added to drinking water meet the NSF, International American National Standards Institute standard of 60. It's called an NF 60 standard. Hydrofluorosilicic acid has been certified as meeting the NSF and ANSI standard of 60. So what the district is adding to the water is in complete compliance with state and federal law and the initiative.
May I please add to that before we pass by it?
Hang on one second. Do you want to say anything, Paul?
No, I think Mary covered it perfectly.
Okay. Well, I will say something. From the chemistry standpoint, hydrofluorosilicic acid is the product that's used to make sodium fluoride. So it's a refined product, and we get chemical analyses with the product when we buy it. So we have certified analyses saying what the quality of the material is, including all of its trace contaminants. And I have looked at that personally. You may be aware of a water quality person. And basically there's nothing there but hydrofluorosilicic acid, which the product that you're after is the fluoride of that portion. So whether it comes from sodium fluoride or it comes from hydrofluorosilicic acid really makes no difference whatsoever with respect to the amount of fluoride that's being added. It's just a different formulation of the same material.
Where does this come from? Can you please tell us?
Where does what come
Where does
from?
the hydrofluorosilicic acid come from originally? I know can we buy it from Lucier Chemicals, but can you tell people where it originally comes from?
Sure, it's a byproduct of the fertilizer industry.
Yeah, it comes from the scrubbers of their fertilizing plant, and it's industrial grade, correct?
No.
The hydrofluorosilicic acid, in
It is
fact,
not
I have a
industrial
copy
grade.
of the.
It is not industrial grade.
And,
Is that
and,
where it comes from, the fertilizer industry?
Yes,
Do
it
you
comes from the-
expound on that?
Mhm.
Expand on it in what form?
Fertilizer industry, well, if they were to get rid of this in any other way, would they have to pay perhaps money
Sure.
to the EPA?
Of course, but that's not the reason
Now
it
they
comes.
make a profit
No, but that's not the
because
reason it
they
comes
put
this
it
way.
in water.
This is a trivial expense to the phosphate industry.
I've never had a cavity, but I think I could be a lot smarter than I am.
Well, maybe, maybe
I had a lot
not.
of fluoride, I had fluorosis as a child. It happens to people.
Okay, well, as you may or may not be aware, there are places in Texas that serve water today at 4 or 5 parts per million of fluorides naturally.
That explains a lot about
Maybe
that.
it does and maybe it doesn't.
That's why we're not in Texas.
The bottom line is that science is what explains things, not emotions and not how people feel.
Government paid science. Regarding science, can you please tell us one scientific study that has been done on hydrofluorosilicic acid showing unequivocally that it is safe? One study on hydrofluorosilicic acid,
The
not on.
National Sanitation Foundation Standard 60 is designed to ensure that all chemicals added to water are safe.
No,
But the
no,
National
it's not.
Sanitation Foundation.
Yes, it
Do
is.
they
No, it's
have, does the National Sanitation Foundation have the authority to approve a chemical substance that's being used for the purpose of having a medical effect on our bodies? That's not their position. They deal with chemicals that treat the water. This is being put in our water for the purpose of having a medical effect on our bodies. So we need to know what studies have been done on hydrofluorosilicic acid showing that it's safe. Even one.
You need to review the work that's been done by the National Science
That
Foundation.
doesn't answer my question. Are they authorized to approve chemical substances that are being used for the purpose of having a medical effect on our bodies? That's my question.
They are authorized to put things into your water which are to be drunk.
To treat the
So
water.
the water is healthy after these materials are added.
The standard 60 is just saying what kind of ingredients are in it, and that's all it is. There are
It is.
no evidence-based safety studies for the use of hydrofluorosilicic acid on the use of humans drinking it, nor is there not one single solitary study, evidence-based, that shows that even if you brush it on your teeth, it works. It does not work ingested, does not work when you brush your teeth.
The American
Larry, there's
Dental-
not a single solitary study.
Donna, you should have been here when Pollock was here. The American Dental Society does not agree with you.
Pollock,
Can I just,
Mr. Pollock is kind of like the McCarthy
Dr.
era.
Pollock.
He holds up and says, I have my studies in my hand, and never shows them because he doesn't have them.
Have you read them?
Yes, I have.
You know, the ADA also
I have every one of
recommends-
every one of his PowerPoint presentations, and I've met with him personally.
The ADA also recommends that warnings are given to parents so that they do not give fluoridated water to their bottle-fed babies. So if you're quoting the ADA and the CDC, which is the organization that told us that 41% of our teenage kids between the ages of 12 and 15 have dental fluorosis, this is a fact.
Which is
These
an
are the
aesthetic problem.
organizations that are telling you that you need to warn people about this. So can you please put warnings on our water labels?
if we could just back up for a minute, because we're now far beyond what we can do here. We are not the MSF. And I mean, I'd like to turn this back to our attorneys, because these are not standards that we have set. These are standards that we are a public water utility that we are required to obey. So it is, I understand the debate that you want to have, but that is not our jurisdiction. We did not set these standards.
Well, actually, that's where we're in disagreement, because we are saying that the interpretation that you have of the law is incorrect. 21 other communities in the state of California have already rejected fluoridation. So everything that you're telling us, these legal reasons, this is what we've been telling you for 4 years. We disagree, and we have backup and scientific studies to show you this. So when you tell us
Well, I
that
think
you don't have
tonight-
any authority, we are telling you, yes, you do. And an
Well-
election is coming up,
We
so
all know
we're just
that.
telling you.
May I ask something that
If I
might
could
be
just-
helpful?
If I could just finish for a second, because I'd like to have, this point of this conversation today is to have a conversation. But we can't, I mean, it doesn't make sense for us to be getting into the scientific issues, because that is not our purview. We are a water utility. We do not set those standards. If you have a legal issue about our interpretation, I'm going to turn back to Tom and Mary and see if we can at least pin that one down, because I'm not understanding what the legal disagreement is.
Director Kohler, we asked Ms. Stroh to provide us with a copy of her legal opinion so we could review it before the staff report went out last week, and we did not get one.
Well, she's here, so let's just have the
That's not
conversation.
true. I gave her 6 pages, and she's dismissing that.
Well, John, it's hard, we can't
I know,
hear you. Can you
I know.
come here, and if we could just have a,
I don't think that's a good idea.
I actually don't want you to be here till 11 o'clock at night.
These cards?
No, I actually don't think I want you to be here till 11 o'clock at night. I'd like to be useful and not having that happen. So I was wondering if we were going to go over the suggestions, and I appreciate what you're saying about the scientific. The group got together and put together some suggestions that might work better for you, since this is a toxin and it is causing disease states. If you had each side at the same time at the meeting, one of our suggestions in the letter I gave you, that you have a 30-minute presentation from one and 30-minute presentation from the other, so it's not he said, she said. And then you would be able to see that what you are putting in is a toxin. And I've brought you, here it is here. It's this thick. I'm not going to give you this whole thing unless you want it. But here.
but Donna, I think we're trying to pin down the legal issues here. I mean, that's why, that's
Okay.
what we are.
I am trying to help you with that, because that report that I just delivered had 1,744 evidence-based peer-reviewed studies that actually link fluoride to breast cancer, an issue that is very important in this community. And so I am addressing the legal issues, because what I want to ask you now is if you know and have knowledge that something is first doing harm, aren't you going against your own precautionary ordinance that you have? You have a precautionary policy that outlines that if something is a toxin in the environment, you know about it, that you have the duty to bring the information up front and look at it. And I have your precautionary principle in front of me, and your attorney has got a copy of it. And doesn't it say that you must take every means possible to make sure something is first not doing any harm? Not only that, the state, I called Mark Levine's office and I talked to the legal department. And the local jurisdictions and counties can actually enhance and improve things having to do with the health, the public health of the public. They can actually improve the health without breaking the law. You can't go backwards. You can't make a rule here in this county that undoes something that's protecting our health, but you can make an improvement. And the science has not been examined, and this is your job. If you're going to put something that's toxic in, you should see for yourself that it is toxin, and you can improve it. And the county has a precautionary resolution that actually says that's a good thing to do. And I really live in this community because I think it's unique and special, and we are better than
You
this.
don't live in this community, first of all,
Well, I live in Nevada.
but Novato doesn't fluoridate, and it's not South Marin.
Well, when I'm stopping it from fluoridating, you know what, you brought up a good point there, Larry, because if Sonoma County fluoridates, this community gets 25% more fluoridation. You'll have over fluoridation like you have on many occasions.
And she cares about people.
Can I-
That's good. We all care about
And
it.
guess what? I don't eat in these restaurants here, or nor will I buy a cup of coffee because you fluoridate. So it's hurting your businesses.
Joanna, can I ask a question?
Sure.
One question. Okay, what I'm wondering is, it's a really simple question, maybe it's to be directed to the legal counsel, but if there is a state law and there is a ballot measure D, would it be possible for you to examine how to interact with, you know, the cause that these people, that everyone's describing? And I understand there's a lot gone on with the research and all of the people that have all these feelings, but it sounds to me like MMWD has not really examined the legal approach or strategy that they could possibly take. I can't imagine that there is no regulation or Clean Water Act or anything environmental that couldn't be enacted and used to some extent
Clean
if
Water Act is
necessary.
not sewage, first of all.
That's a very good point, and we've given them many
No, but I'm
times
just
to do
wondering if there would be a way of examining alternative scenarios. That's all I'm asking.
I think we should let the
Well,
lawyer.
let me run this meeting, okay? Thank you. What I was about to say is, you've heard our legal opinion. We have two professional lawyers here who make a living doing this, telling us that we have no alternative.
Wonderful.
But what I'm asking you though is that, you know, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And there are legal authorities. And I mean, I'm a landscape architect, I'm a community and regional planner, I've got a double master's. I've done a lot of research on, I mean, I actually have a county council member here from the county of Maui in Hawaii. And we've done a lot of research on water supply and drinking water and how, you know, it comes to people through the plumbing systems. Fluoridation is just another issue. It's not necessarily the end of the line. Maybe there are ways to go around these types of things and kind of look at it in a different perspective. That's all I'm asking, if it's possible.
I think what we're asking is what it says in your precautionary policy that the board has. It says, the community has a right to know complete and accurate information on potential human health and environmental impacts associated with the selection of products, services, and operations or plans. The burden to supply this information lies with the proponent, not with the general public. We keep trying to bring it to you, but I have a question. If there's something that this public water agency does and it doesn't work anymore, and there's money being spent on it, wouldn't you stop it? I got that feeling when I got a tour. If they discover things don't work anymore, that you're kind of obligated to move on to what does work, right?
I'd also, you know, I can answer.
No, that's a question I ask, right? If something doesn't work anymore. Well, this has not worked forever. Here's your own newsletter in Marin Community Clinics begging for more money for more chairs for dental clinics. So if this works so well, how come we're doing fundraisers right now to get more dental health care? Because there's a dental health care crisis, but this fluoride really works, all right? Because it doesn't.
I'd also like to point out, answering her question, there is another way to get beyond the mandate, and there's a provision in there that provides for free topical treatment, free topical fluoride treatments to children in their schools. This is safer, less expensive than water fluoridation, and implementing this makes you do not have to, you are not bound by the mandate. All you have to do is stop fluoridating, put this law in place, and you are no longer obligated by the mandate to fluoridate. And that's just one of the paths that you guys could actually stop water fluoridation today. And we've given it to you over the years. I'm happy to send it all to you again, but we have provided you with many paths to actually stop fluoridation today.
We have tried to work with you.
Can I just, for a minute, we do need to have a response. So my two questions now, the result of all of this to council are, first of all, can you respond to what I understand to be the suggestion that our internal precautionary principle somehow trumps the state law? My understanding is that it doesn't, but I'd like you to respond to that. The second is, can you respond to this suggestion that there's another provision of the state law that is an alternative to what we're doing? Those two questions. Thanks.
Sure. I think I can tackle the precautionary principle. There's nothing that we're doing in terms of fluoridating the water supply that is in conflict with the precautionary principle. In terms of the hierarchy of laws and administrative policies, we are a municipal water agency created under state law, and we are bound to follow state law. And one of the issues that we're dealing with as lawyers is the legislature has made it very clear that they have intended to occupy the field of water fluoridation in this state. That doctrine is called the doctrine of preemption. Now, public water agencies like ours can be more stringent than state law, but cannot do less than what the state mandates under statutes.
But what if you did the science and found out that it wasn't less? It was more protective to look at the science. I actually don't expect us to do this tonight. All I was suggesting in my letter to you was that another time be set up where you would have the time. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I think this requires attention because I did call the state's legal department, and the Attorney General's office is not going to sue us if we shut it off. I am doing my homework.
Let's let Mary finish her.
I know, but I'm just asking for you to do the due diligence.
Yeah, that's fine.
The second question about orally administering fluoride is not my understanding, and Tom, is it yours? My understanding is that is not an option for us. We're required to fluoridate the water under the statutes that are contained in the staff report.
But I think that's insufficient for the, I'm sorry, I think that's insufficient for the board. I hear you saying it's not an option. Can you explain why it's not an option?
I'm not even sure what statute she's referring to.
I have given this to you probably 5 times. It's the first meeting that we have in February, so I'll email it to you again. But you do have it.
What's it called again?
And many of you on the have it, and as well as all the board members. So it's also in the Healthy Safety Code. I don't know the exact code number,
Right.
but you do have it.
I do know that we've gotten it. I think the issue
Yeah.
isn't whether we've received it. I think the issue is that what we're hearing from our council is that your legal interpretation, that these are alternatives, is not the legal interpretation that they are bringing.
Yeah, well,
forward.
I mean, I can tell you, read the thing. It says in there, if this law is if the free topical fluoride treatments are being provided, the mandate is not enforceable. That's a way out of the mandate.
Okay.
Also, I mean, and like I
I'm
said, we have
on
sent you stuff. I'm
track,
happy to send
Mary.
it again.
I'm going to call the folks here for their presentations, for
Thank
their
you.
comments. Thank you.
Thank you,
Donna.
Larry.
Each speaker will be given 2 minutes. There's a timer sitting on the podium. It will light up green, it will light up yellow when you're 1 minute to go, and red. I will also hold up a indicator to you so that you'll know that we're coming. I will ask you to stop at the end of 2 minutes. Thomas Jacobs.
Good evening, my name is Thomas Jacobs. I'm a Marin County native. I was born at Marin General Hospital in 1952. I still live here, and I'm a dentist. And I've been on the front lines for the last 36 years And let me tell you, things have changed dramatically in the last 36 years. You used to see patients back in the 60s with every proximal surface in their mouth decayed in the 70s. But all of a sudden, that doesn't happen anymore. You've got mouths full of healthy teeth. I attribute that to fluoride. And you have to base your decisions on fact. And I go back far enough to remember when fluoride was a communist plot to soften our minds. I remember Wendy Nelder in San Francisco claiming that it caused HIV before we knew it caused HIV. So please base your decisions on science. Fluoride works, guaranteed. I'm on the front lines.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Mr. Davidson?
Thank you. My name is Dan Davidson. I'm a dentist. I practice in San Francisco. I've lived in the county since 1977. I've raised my family here in the county. I think this county is blessed by having fluoride in its water. I think you need to resist irrational thought, and that's not based on peer-reviewed scientific evidence. I know there's a lot of pressure on you. I applaud you for sticking with a legal decision. Unfortunately, I think people here need to put their energies towards the state and the California Health and Safety Code if they really want to overturn it. I think you're obligated by that code to fluoridate. I believe that fluoridation saves, for every dollar spent, saves about $38 in treatment. I've made a living in this business and extracted decayed teeth and filled teeth for the greater part of 40 years. And I believe that you're right in fluoridating the water. I'm happy my son has fluoride ingested in the water, and as a result, I think he's had one cavity in his entire lifetime. So I applaud you for sticking to your guns and keeping fluoride in the water. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson.
Bring those studies next time.
Mr. Cohn? Justin Cohn?
Okay, I was going to pass, but I just say a couple of things. If fluoride is in every toothpaste we buy, why do we need it in our water that doesn't even come in contact with our teeth? And also, I'm just wondering how many people on the board here drink fluoridated water straight from the tap? All? Really? That explains a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You should try it.
So bad.
Mr. Barnett?
Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. I actually have a letter that I wanted to read, but I think I'll just pass it to you and maybe you can respond later. The main thing that's come up in this meeting that I'm really glad to have seen is that it seems that Ms. Casey is informing the board of the legal interpretations, which is your job. I understand that. And it seems as though it's a well-researched and thorough position. I want to suggest that Ms. Casey serves at the will of the board, and if there was a mandate from the board to the legal counsel to say, hey, how can we stop fluoridating the water? You could perhaps come up with a way that the board could, the Mmwd, could discontinue fluoridating the water. You know, if there was a mandate from the board to you, and I understand that may not be your position, that may not be your interpretation as it stands at this time, but I'm just suggesting that it seems to me that the idea that Ms. Casey's legal interpretation informs the board, while it's a correct relationship, it could also be different if the board had a mandate from Ms. Casey to determine a way to not fluoridate the water.
I don't want to.
So this is my 2 minutes, right?
Right.
I'm glad to listen to you
I
outside.
don't want to take all your 2 minutes.
You can pause. Can you pause my time?
Let it
I just want to have a conversation. But maybe we need Tom to respond to this, but there are at least 2 cases, and what level were they? Were they appellate court?
Appellate court.
Right, so, and maybe I should let him respond, but what I heard from our outside counsel, who's an expert, is that water districts don't have the discretion that you're describing. So
you know, I'm not trying to take away your time, and I'm happy to let you talk longer, but I don't want to have us talking past each other, which is what I feel has happened for 6 months. So it's not just that we have counsel with a particular interpretation, it's that there is California appellate court law. I mean, that is the reality in which we are operating here.
I understand that, but there are many communities in California that have discontinued fluoridating their water because they thought it was a good idea.
Santa Barbara.
Davis,
Santa Cruz.
California,
And
just
so,
a few months ago.
so I'm just saying, let's look at this.
Los
I've
Angeles
said what I have to
doesn't
say.
fluoridate today. So
I appreciate
it
your taking time to listen, and I understand your position. So I'll give you this letter. And you can
Can I request that Tom respond to that before we go on to the next? I just think this is a point where there has been just all of this talking past one another, and if we can at least make some progress there, I think that will be valuable.
The law is clear. The law provides a remedy in the event that the district decides not to follow the law. The Attorney General can bring a writ of mandate and seek a court order forcing the district to follow the law. In my experience, water agencies are not in the business of avoiding their legal obligations. Now, I'm not talking about the political process. That's an entirely different issue. That's a policy issue. That's not my domain here. I'm strictly reviewing the law and telling you what the law says. If you decide not to follow the law and you ask legal counsel to defend you, that's another story. But I'm telling you that the law says what it says. If there's a community out there that has chosen not to follow the law, maybe they get away with it, maybe they don't. You know, that happens all the time. Some people don't pay their taxes and they get away with it. Some communities follow certain laws and don't follow others. Whether they're pursued or not is a different issue, but in terms of what the law says, it's not equivocal.
Thank you. Ginger Souter Mason.
Ginger Slaughters Basin from Kentfield, and I moved to this community in '73, so it was already fait accompli by the time I got here. As a medical technologist, I thought it was the best thing to happen until I started reading and listening to people, and I, like yourself, Lisa, I have changed my mind. I also am a producer at Community Media Center Marin, and I would like to present to the board members and to the general manager copies of DVDs of 3 interviews or 3 presentations regarding this process of fluoridation. And if you don't have the legal right, I would hope you'd look at the moral right of changing that for a community who has a very extremely high rate of breast cancer and thyroid problems, of which I suffer from continually. Thank you.
Let me just ask you a quick question. Is there a difference in breast cancer rates between Novato and Southern Marin?
I believe that the Southern Marin is higher. In our research at Marin Breast Cancer Watch, and when we did our studies there, we found that the Southern Marin portion was higher.
Because I understood from epidemiological standpoints, they've been able to find nothing to identify why they...
That's true, but we looked at practically everything. It was really difficult, and
It always is.
It is difficult, and because so many other things are fluoridated now, and because contamination is so broad spectrum, it's very difficult to pin things down. And even on the East Coast, when they did their $50 million study on Long Island, they only found one thing.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Michael Levinson, and then Rudy Leonardi. Thank you.
where Michael is. I'm Rudy Leonardi.
Okay, thank you. Good
I live in
that
the
you
valley, and you know, part of my career was a public official also for a number of years. City of Oakland, wild place, Sacramento, represented about 6 million people up there, and I always know that there is a spirit of the law and there's a letter of the law, and you can always get more interpretation through an attorney general and a lot of inquiries before you actually make these kind of decisions. And I also realize that any court of law, the new information can come forth that you don't consider all the time. And just yesterday, I just published an article with 2 doctors and a researcher on GMOs and the toxicity of a halogenic salt that's been hidden from us in those GMOs. And coming from glyphosate, which is in the same classification category as 7 on the periodic table, as fluoride, as chlorine, is causing the depletion of iodine in our bodies and throughout our complete systems. And the article pulls the loops together on what that does as far as the depletion of iodine and linking it to congenital birth defects. And the Senate and the House, who I also consult with this organization called Moms for POP, Mom for Preserving Organic Power, is being made aware of this. I think this is new information. I think you don't act in a tank by yourselves. You don't act in isolation. I think that this is, adding it to the water, adding it to the concerns of GMOs. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It is a rollover effect, it's a compounded effect as far as the health is concerned. And I think that the spirit and the letter of the law that you have a responsibility for protecting us in our health, I think this is of information that I would like you to look at. In some circles, when we're asking the Senate, and I'll address this to some of the women here too, we're asking the women of the Senate to step up because it affects birth control, et cetera. And I think the warnings are necessary, and in some circles I would really go off and talk about how criminal I think this whole thing is. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
What is the last name?
Looks like Levinson to me. It's Clean Water, California, Irving Street, San Francisco. Yeah. That's you. Okay, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it.
It's Levesque, L-E-V-E-S-Q.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about my printing there. Yeah. By the way, I'd really appreciate if I could get a copy of the chemical structure,
What's in the hydrofluorosilicic acid?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. If I could get a copy of that would be
Absolutely.
really great. And I also know people would love to see you publish something about what the FDA has been saying about the dangers of fluoride for infants. If it's dangerous for infants, and you're putting it in the water, I think, if I was a pregnant woman, I would definitely be saying, you better think twice about what you're doing. I think the big problem with fluoride is it's an enzyme disruptor. Now, enzyme disruptors are very interesting because what they do is they interrupt the biological activity of the body. And there's no doubt that fluoride does strengthen the enamel of the teeth. But as it strengthens the enamel of the teeth, it also inhibits the remineralization of the enamel. And what this results in is less cavities. However, it does result in brittleness and therefore cracking of the teeth. And I would love to see studies regarding how many more crowns, how many more root canals, and all of that takes place in fluoridated versus non-fluoridated areas, because that's where the real money is. And we do have to keep in mind the American Dental Association is a trade association and looking out for its benefactors.
We also have to keep in mind that our dentists are health
Absolutely.
folks who are improving our health.
I have dental friends, and actually every one of them have been opposed to fluoridated water as well. So I appreciate the fact that you're opening this up for listening. I see your legal obligations, but I think there's a real good argument to say you have control here. You guys have control. The federal government can close down, but the cities keep working. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Steve Lett?
Hi, I'm a resident of Mill Valley, have been since 1976, and listening to this, because I didn't realize there was this legal issue here, I just have a question, because there are a lot of communities in California that don't fluoridate their water. How can they legally do so if you're saying that they are all breaking the law?
Let me be clear. The law only requires communities with above 10,000 to fluoridate water, provided that they also have the source of funds to set up the fluoridation system. I know somebody earlier mentioned the city of Davis. Turns out that a friend of mine is the head of the Davis Woodland Water Agency, so I called him because I read in the paper that Davis had not fluoridated their water, and since this issue was coming up, and I asked him what was the story, and he said they don't have the money. They don't have enough of the alternative source of revenues in order to fluoridate. So they come within the provision of the health and safety code that says if you don't have sufficient funds that are set forth as provided in the code, then you don't have to fluoridate.
Is that true of Nevada and other communities in California?
I can't speak to Nevada, I only asked David.
It seems to me that, again, what a lot of people are saying, where there's a will, there's a way. And it just seems to me, I guess the one issue here is, does this board think that this is an important enough issue to try to find some will? Because there are a lot of communities that aren't fluoridating. And so I guess that's one question. I don't know where any of you personally stand. You talked a little bit, but it seems that the board could, even if it couldn't legally do something, if it determines that, it could make a stand, make a statement, say we think that that there shouldn't be fluoride in the water. There's a lot of questions besides the benefit of fluoride. Whether you agree or not that it's helpful for teeth, there's a lot of other things that fluoride has been shown to be not helpful for, and there's a lot of scientific evidence for that. There's also the question of free choice. I mean, personally, I think it's fine if people want to take fluoride, but I and other people who don't want it shouldn't have to have it in their water supply.
You are aware of You are aware that we only increase the fluoride level. It's not zero to begin with.
I understand that.
Okay.
That's natural fluoride.
Oh,
It's not phosphate added.
Calcium fluoride naturally has a different effect than sodium fluoride. These are different compounds that have different effects in the body, so those things need to be taken into account.
So they dissociate, so it's fluoride that you're dealing with. But thank you.
Larry, I think you fell asleep on that day in chemistry.
That's
not true.
I got a PhD in it, so I don't think.
Well, that was, what was 35 years ago?
Kreitzberg, or Carolyn Kreitzberg, and then Jonathan Levy.
My name is Caroline Kreitzberg. I am not a scientist. I haven't appointed myself with dental studies or breast cancer studies, but I have my own personal story. I grew up in New Jersey drinking well water. I moved to California in 1977, and I began to experience severe stomach difficulties. My doctors tested me for infestation, for infection. I was tested for ulcer, and they were ready to start doing more invasive tests and said, maybe you should just go for some stress management courses. My bilirubin count was a little bit high, and so was my father's. So he has his own well, and he suggested I start drinking his well water rather than my own tap water. I drink a lot of water. Overnight, my stomach problems cleared up. It was like a miracle. I'd been dealing with this for a decade, and I got a reverse osmosis water filter on my tap, and I basically am fine. And I believe it's the fluoride in my water, and it inhibits my lifestyle. I don't drink from water fountains in public, and I avoid soup in restaurants that might be water-based, and just basically run my life around that. It didn't kill me. I'm an otherwise extremely healthy person, health-conscious person. I have to wonder how many people out there who are suffering from irritable bowel syndrome or something like that might be intolerant of the fluoride in their water like me. Thank you.
Hi. I just heard the legal discussion on this, and we're aware of what happened in Watsonville and other communities where a legal challenge did not result. But that doesn't mean that you can't find another way and try a third time. That doesn't mean you can't take a stand and try another avenue. Just because it failed twice doesn't mean that it's going to fail every single time. There's other ways to do it, and you can find it. If you believe that fluoride should not be put in the water, that we shouldn't put that in the water, you can find a way. 2 times failure doesn't mean that's it. There's no other way. There's another way.
It's many more than 2 times failure.
If the number doesn't matter, you can keep trying.
If the Sisyphean approach is the one you like. Mr. Kreitzberg? And then, I guess this is done.
I happen to be another person who cannot tolerate the fluoride in the water. And my doctor feels that there's a possibility of probably about 8% of the people might like that. And I've met other people who had some symptoms. I just said, stop drinking fluoridated water. Not from this community, but from other communities. And they did stop. I believe it probably does help to make the teeth harder, but it also makes your other bones in your body harder. There's a lot more bone breakages in the last 50 years than it used to be.
We live a lot longer than we did.
Well, that's true.
That's not true.
The fertilizer industry isn't the only one that has this byproduct. So does the steel and the aluminum industry. And they happen to be the biggest grantors to the dental schools, those organizations. They're having a lot of studies to say, keep Lake Tahoe blue. But one of the things, all the communities around Lake Tahoe in the 50-mile area are not allowed to fluoridate their water. They just don't want that to go into Lake Tahoe. Well, I know a lot of things about it, but those things have been mentioned already. And you might find for the teeth, but there's no reason that you should be watering your garden, washing your car, and taking baths and such in fluoridated water also. Thank you.
Thank you. None?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Kai Now. I'm a 14-year-old currently in my freshman year at Novato High. I get my water, my tap water from Marin Municipal Water District, and I'm here against it. And if you look at the NFPA 704, the triangle thing, you know, the diamond, it rates a 4 on it. In the threat to health, the highest possible rating for it. A 4 under it means that very short exposure could cause death or major residual injury. Injuries like the many grotesque burns faced by people who must deal with this toxic chemical. The health effects have also been shown to cause reduced IQ by Harvard studies. Now, this is much different from natural fluoridation, which is calcium fluoride. Calcium fluoride is a much more stable compound. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is much more unstable and our body absorbs it much more quickly. As well as calcium rates a 0 on the health rating on the NFPA. 704. So it does many horrible things to people, but I only have so much time here, so I'll keep it short. Fluoride destroys the synthesis of collagen, which makes up 30% of your skin, ligaments, muscles, cartilage, bones, and teeth, etc. It suppresses your immune system by being an enzyme inhibitor, as was previously mentioned. And I say that if worse comes to worse, and I know you can't remove it because of legal issues, that instead you might be able to instead replace it with calcium fluoride, which would which will not pose nearly the threat level as hydrofluorosilicic acid does.
Yeah, buddy.
Hello. You've heard about wearing your heart on your sleeve. I am obviously wearing my feelings on my chest here. My 12-year-old son thought this was really awesome. He helped me do this because he knew I was coming tonight. And in listening to the legal counsel and the thoughts about how a supposedly sacred ballot measure was, made that can't be challenged, even if there was these ballot measures and people saying they don't want it, I just wonder how it is that, and maybe the council can answer this, that the California Health and Safety Code is looked at, it seems like it's written in stone, like it's some gospel thing that can't be changed. And I don't really understand that, because in thinking about the smoking laws here in California, obviously that's been something that I would assume would be changed by California Health and Safety Code. So who writes the codes, and why can't there be some conversation about how that could be changed? Thank you.
You raise a good question, and the only people who can change state law is the state legislature. So that's what the president of the board recommended, that you folks do, that you pursue the legislature, because if you can get the health and safety code changed, then that would affect our legal obligation.
So just to be really clear, you're absolutely right. I don't think anybody meant to suggest that these were rules that were set in stone. We're simply saying we don't have the authority to change them.
I understand, but I would just like to say one more thing about the fertilizer byproduct. Is bullshit. Thanks.
Donna, do you wish to speak again?
Sure. I have a question for the attorneys, since it's kind of on the back of what someone else said. With regard to the law, there's a law above the health codes, and I believe it's called the Constitution. And number 14, it is a clear violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. 14th Amendment and similar California constitutional provisions. It's in regards to the putting of a toxin in 10,000 connections or more, and not putting something in under that. What you're now doing is you're forcing some to have a poison and others not. That is against the 14th Amendment and the that's above the health laws. The other thing is, what is the objection? And I'll let you answer that in a minute, but that's what's true. What's the objection with the board? I wrote you and asked you if you would send a letter to the FDA CDER and ask the question that you know is the answer, because you are breaking federal law above California law. Fluoride is an unapproved drug. Look at the books. It requires approval if you're even going to apply it topically. Ask our dentist. That is why on a tube of toothpaste it says drug, facts, do not swallow. Call the poison control department if your kid swallows it. That is because it is an unapproved drug. It is not approved for ingestion. If you would merely write the letter that I requested and wrote for you to write a letter to the FDA and ask them for the approval of this drug so that you can continue to put it in the water here. You won't get that approval, but I asked you to do it. And see, it seems to me that you have the obligation to do the due diligence of not only the federal law, recognizing the Constitution, recognizing a resolution in your own county that says you should examine all other alternatives before you do harm, and your own board policy, which, if you haven't read it in a long time, I read part of it for you, says that you must look at all other alternatives and examine the science before you do harm to the public, which is being harmed right now. You need to look at that.
Please stop.
So, my name is Cynthia Stemmer, and my family moved here in 1960. We raised 5 kids here. My parents are here. My mother got breast cancer and died. My grandmother got breast cancer and died. I got breast cancer and didn't die. I am extremely environmentally conscious. I run, I do all kinds of things, and there is a very high risk of a lot of environmental toxins in this area. So having said that, I don't understand why, if there is public outcry for a particular chemical additive to the water, why our Marin Municipal Water District Board does not help us to take an interest in trying to develop either a new ballot measure or work with the county officials or try to go to the state legislature and help us to understand how we can figure this issue out, how we can help ourselves to not deal with this. Could you possibly answer the question how we could garner your support?
I actually think that's a question for the board.
Or your support, Larry. I really would appreciate it.
It's an interesting question, in the sense that it's what we have been saying to you folks since the beginning of this, is your focus is in the wrong place.
But I don't believe that, Larry.
Well,
I believe that
I'm telling you, it is a fact.
I believe that if you were my friend and you understood me and your mom died and your grandmother died and your daughter had breast cancer and she got a double mastectomy, you wouldn't want to consider all the options as well. And I'm not trying to appeal to your emotional side. I'm trying to appeal to your business demeanor. You're a very powerful person in this county. We respect you for that. We need help, okay? And so we're trying to get some response, and I don't believe in arguing. I want to negotiate with everybody. I'm standing here, I've listened to everything, and I just think that, you know, we're a powerful county. We're famous worldwide. We need to have some type of a representation at the legal level.
Can I take a response to that?
Yeah, please.
I absolutely, I feel the frustration that
Yeah.
you're sending me here. But what we've been trying to tell you, and what I am telling you, is you are on the wrong course. When we take the oath of office to sit here and make decisions, we don't get the luxury of coming in and say, gee, what does Jack Gibson feel today? And then get to do it. It doesn't work that way. When we get an action item, where there is something we're going to make a decision on, what we do is we get evidence, we get people coming in, everybody gets to come, it has to be an open meeting, they comment, we hear both sides, and then we listen to it all, and then we make a decision. It's not what our gut feels or even what our heart feels. That's the process. That's our
But Jack,
responsibility.
what if you got sued?
I'm not finished yet.
What if-
I'm not finished yet. That's what we have to do. That's the way the process works.
Right.
If you 100% convinced me, and I'm willing to concede, you may all be right. I have no idea. I'm not a scientist. You may be right. I'm not saying you're not. But the process does not allow me to say, therefore, I'm going to do it. Now, I've heard several times here, where there's a will, there's a way. That's absolutely true. That's also true for this group. You're just going about it the totally wrong way. You got to take that will, you got to get up to Sacramento, and you got to get the law changed there. And then you got to come back. If you disagree with our legal opinion, there's venues for that too. So there's a way, but you keep coming back here, running through the same drill. It's and that's why you're frustrated. There's nothing we can
But
do,
Jack, that's
even if
not
I
true.
100%
You
think
can
you're
write
right.
a letter, Jack. You
I
can
don't-
support
I-
us.
Write a letter.
If you guys wrote letters
I
in
have a response to
support
that
of the
too, thank you.
county,
Before we would write a letter, we don't
individuals.
write hypothetical letters. If you go up to Sacramento and you draft a bill and you get a bill proposed, you come back here with it. We would, as a board, I am sure, evaluate it. We might support it, we might not, depending on whether we agree with it, but it would not, it has to be something other than hypothetical. It has to be actual on the table, a real piece of legislation that we can respond to, and we often do respond to pieces of legislation for or against.
but
We've done all
right
the
now
time.
what's happening is there's a line drawn in the sand, okay?
We
It's
didn't
the
draw a
board-
line in the sand.
Oh, but it's here though. It's
I
in the room.
understand. That's
It's
the frustration.
board, and then it's the residents of Marin County. And so if it was not a line drawn in the sand, that's all I'm suggesting. If everybody felt the same way, okay, if everybody felt like, well, maybe we should look into it. Maybe we should write some letters, maybe we should talk to our legislator, maybe we should all get on the same track and try to prevent a problem.
That's calling for us to make a decision,
That's right.
which we're not allowed to make.
No, but you're a human being, you live here or wherever.
Of course, and I can
So-
step out of the
so-
room and we can talk about it, but
Right.
I'm here
So-
as a board member.
But we all sit here
Okay.
together.
We appreciate your losses and, you know, we have heartfelt
No, it's
sympathy.
okay about that,
Let me
I'm
finish.
over it.
Let me
But-
finish. But what I find interesting is the two folks who look in people's mouths all the time, sitting here, the dentists tell us that what they see is different than what you folks feel.
Right.
Now, I'm not gonna go any further than that.
You ingest it. That has nothing to do with it.
Well,
Not being scientific.
Does water hit your teeth? Do you drink it like this? No, it goes right to the back of your throat. These
you're-
guys
you're
don't
out of
need to
order,
be here.
so let's stop that, okay? So, could you please sit down, as we need to move on? Okay, I have a Miss Sibley.
Marin, Sylvie. Hi. Well, I wanted to just point out one more time that I really feel that if you're going to continue fluoridating the water, the parents need to be warned about not putting this fluoridated water in infant formula for their babies. The ADA is saying this, and this is very important, that people be notified, and you have a responsibility to do that. And then my question is, are you going to tell us tonight what you're going to do?
I thought so.
We don't have an action item before us tonight.
No.
Pardon?
We don't have an action item before us tonight.
There's no
So then
decision to
what
be made.
happens after this, then, after you've heard our comments?
You know, I've read all the materials that have been sent to me. I read the book that Donna Stroh gave me a few weeks ago. And I think I've done what my fellow board members have done, and that's listen very carefully to everything that you've said. I think we've read the materials that have been sent to us, we've read all the letters, and if we're going to take an action, that's something that we would have to formulate and put in front of the board. And right now, I agree very much with what Lisa said earlier, that even with having read everything, and I work at a research university, I'm not a scientist, but I work with a bunch of research scientists, I'm not convinced that we should do anything differently than what we're doing right now. But I do agree with my fellow board members that the thing to do, if you want to change this, is to work with Sacramento, and obviously we would oblige with the direction given by state laws. That's what we're doing now. And we don't come into these meetings and decide which laws we're going to follow and which ones we're going to disregard. And so it puts us on an awkward path if we were to do that right now. And so I really appreciate the time that you've all taken, and I've spoken to several of you, and I've listened very carefully, and I've talked with my colleagues at the university about this, and there are opinions all over the place. And in fact, in the books that I've read and the materials you've read, at the end of a lot of those chapters it said, you know, the findings are inconclusive. There's a number of places where it says that in the book that you provided. But anyway, we don't have an action to take. That's not in front of us right now. And I think we've been carefully listening to everything that all of you said. And thank you. And, you know, I've raised my kids in Marin and have lived here for a long time.
I just want to say one more quick thing, or my time is up. I emailed all of you the clip from YouTube of Dr. Dean Burke, who was a respected scientist. In the 70s, he made it very clear that he tracked the 10 largest fluoridated cities and 10 non-fluoridated cities in the US. And as long as neither of them were fluoridated, the cancer death rates were the same. Once 10 cities were fluoridated, the death rates from cancer started climbing and continued to climb. And it's on YouTube, very easy to find, and I sent it to you all. And as far as I'm concerned, that ought to be enough evidence to make you do something different than what you're doing.
Thank you.
The request that you have an item for the agenda, for an action item next time. And we gave you a list, because you're going to take a look at there too. There's a list of things you can do, and number one would be to start telling the truth in your brochure. You say naturally fluoridated, and it is not. You need to tell the public it's HFSA. You need to tell the truth in your brochure.
Thank you.
That's an action item you can do at the at another board meeting.
Thank you.
I'm Sangeeta Moscow. I've lived here for 40 years, and I've been drinking reverse osmosis all the time I've been here because I know how toxic the fluoride is. And I am really irritated that I'm paying taxes for people like you who are just...
You pay no taxes for us.
I am living in this county, we are paying taxes.
You pay no taxes for
Who's
us.
paying?
Water bills, water bills.
We're paying water bills.
Pay no taxes for us.
We are paying for you. If you don't represent us, then we need somebody else. And I am tired of seeing people say that their hands are tied. You're not paid to have your hands tied. You're paid to serve the community. And I don't see, you are totally against everything. You have your opinion, and you're asserting your opinion after every single other person. You're not open to anything. I have read tons and tons of things. There are all kinds of studies all over the place saying this is toxic. And there is right and wrong.
Thank you.
That is your duty.
Anyone else?
I'd like to speak. My name is Steve Enzer. I live in Sausalito, and I get my water daily from Marin Municipal Water District. Although at work we have filtered water, so I tend to drink more water at work because of that. What I understand is that Marin County is blessed by some of the best drinking water in the world, the Mount Tam watershed. We fluoridated a bit because of old pipes, from what I understand, and for years I've been removing that with a pretty good particulate filter. Anyway, I just learned that I can't remove the fluoride unless I do reverse osmosis, and I've been studying up a little bit about the effects. I want to urge that we doesn't the law say that the material has to be approved, and that this is not an approved material? That's what one source told me. What I would like to say is that if there is debatable medical effectiveness and various debatable medical harms, shouldn't we err on the side of not medicating everybody? And the final point is that this, to me, I don't know, I've never come out here for a meeting, but to me it looks like the overflow parking on Nellen Drive, it's pretty unprecedented. I don't imagine that you get a lot of crowds like this for anything else but water fluoridation. So it looks like there's
smaller crowds.
Yeah. It looks like there's this is the will of
talk about the watershed.
This is the will of your not just customers, but I think municipal means that we own it, right? It's ours, right? So look at the will of them, and then I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but if y'all play any poker, you probably shouldn't, because you communicate your intentions very clearly. And there is no will in this room. I'm looking at stony-faced intransigence. It makes me very sad. Y'all look like you have not a bit of courage in you, and you just want to do what's expedient. I know, it's not nice to hear.
The light's on. Oh,
it's
that's
not
the
nice
reason.
to hear.
You
I
used
know.
your time. Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for taking a minute. I have a follow-up. I may.
Quick.
And I think we all know and understand budgets. And I think it's very interesting that the city of Davis, California, just said, hey, we don't have the money. What if the Marin Municipal Water District allocated its money and the money that it receives from the revenue of the rental properties or the money and said, hey, you know, we'd love to fluoridate the water, but you know, the money's allocated.
As Tom said, there are those who don't pay their taxes and don't go to jail, but that's not us. Thank you.
No, this isn't about taxes. This is about
Thank you.
a budget decision.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken?
There are no fluoridation police, by the way, in the state of
That's
California.
right. Yeah, my name is Robert Jaffe. I've lived in Marin for almost 50 years. And it's interesting with fluoride. The same man who sold fluoride to the American public was a man named Edward Bernays, who also sold cigarette smoking to women in the 1920s. So the American Dental Association and the industrial complex of America has used the water resources of the United States to get rid of toxic waste. And you're complicit in this. This is the system that is set up. But I would, to all of you on the board, I would say take a close look at the margins in which you won your races last time. Because we're going to come for each and every one of you in your districts, and we're going to vote you out. And then we'll replace the legal counsel, we'll replace the general manager, and we'll start over. It's that simple. It's democracy. Okay? So I would look at the race that you won. I know you feel that you're in a real strong position, but we've got PACs. We're organizing. This gets bigger every week, and so know the tide in which you're swimming against politically to keep this position. You guys are all small-time politicians. You want to be bigger politicians. That's what politicians do. But it's time for us to elect new politicians. And that's all I've got to say.
Yes.
Marcia Holmquist from San Anselmo. You probably heard that 97% of Europe doesn't fluoridate, and they all made experiments with that. And then in the 60s and 50s, they taught at the universities how good DDT was, and then we find out this is similar.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Arachi, and I live in Greenbrae, 25 years resident of Marin County. I want to bring up the point that the Marin Municipal Water District is producing a medicated product. It's choosing the vendor, it's choosing the product, and it's distributing it with no warning labels, no contraindication warnings, nothing on our water bills. And to this day, nothing on the website. I came before you 2 months ago, and I asked you to put more information on the website about the possible risk of fluoridation, and I don't believe, at least 2 days ago, it wasn't there yet. And I think that, I know your lawyer tells you that there's a state mandate to fluoridate the water, but I think you should look at the fact that you're manufacturing a fluoridated, a medicated product and distributing it, and that maybe there's some legality around that.
Thank you.
We did not elect you to perpetuate a bad idea. Fluoridation is a bad idea. We elected you to safeguard our health and the water that this county has to distribute to us. That's what you were elected to do, and I'm asking you to do that tonight. Thank you.
We're not going to go down.
When I was with the city of Oakland for 10 years, what we do is sometimes we ask the attorneys, both with the city council and the mayor, to go in and say, would you please explore the alternative and go look at the law and come back to us with a report as to how something could happen. Yeah. And that happened very, very often, and I think that's an option that's extremely viable. And I also know that a lot of times when we wanted a position done, the attorneys work for us, depending on what we want to do. So I suggest that.
Yeah. Fluoridating the water, that you actually filter the fluoridation out with a reverse osmosis system then, so that you could
That's what we
install
tried to do with the desal system. That didn't seem to fly either.
That is not reverse, that doesn't take out fluoride.
course it does.
Desal does not take out fluoride.
Of course
Yes,
it
it does. Reverse osmosis is the same
No,
technology.
reverse, no, it's not the same.
It's exactly the same.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
it
It's
is not.
exactly the same.
Take a tour of the Fountain Valley plant and you'll learn that.
I designed the Fountain Valley plant.
Okay, so hi, you all know me. So I just want to reiterate again that years ago, I actually showed you guys many paths why the 72 vote is not valid, and also several paths why the mandate is not valid. And so I don't know why you're ignoring that, and I really would love a response. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, Mr. Russell, you're a hazardous waste expert, aren't you?
Yes.
So you know exactly what's being put in our water, is that correct?
Yes.
Since you told us where it's from. So what you're telling us is that the organizations that you like to quote, the CDC and the ADA, are warning us not to give this to our babies. They're telling us it's causing dental fluorosis. You know it's being put in our water, and your answer to us is, oh, sorry, we're being forced to put this hazardous waste into your drinking water.
Is that the answer?
That's your answer. And I'm really saddened, confused, baffled, and I really hope you will all take Donna's letter that she worked on and very clearly gave you 7 points that you could do to stop water fluoridation. And please work with us. I've been trying to work with you for 4 years and have never gotten a phone call, an email, or a letter from any of you. So I'm just confused. Why are you doing everything you can to keep this in our water rather than doing everything that you can to stop it? And I have given you in written form, in email form, and hand-delivered you ways that you can do it, and I'm using the same health and safety code that your attorney here is quoting, and I gave that to you in February. So please, work with us.
So
Okay.
let me try to give you an answer, because you're frustrated, but I think so are we. You feel unheard, and let me be clear how unheard we feel as well. These are not rules that we created.
No.
We have gone.
Okay,
You can
know,
keep interrupting me, okay.
You're right, I don't want to, because what I'm saying is, you haven't responded.
I get it, you don't want us to respond. I'm
You know
attempting
what?
to, and you're stopping me.
I know I heard too that you're very frustrated with people because we're complaining about this, so if you don't want to do this
I'm
job,
not frustrated with
don't
you
do it.
because.
Don't do it.
You're not
Don't
frustrated.
resign
if it's too much trouble.
Get someone else.
Get someone who cares about the community.
That's what elections are for.
That's right. That's what the elections are for, and they're coming up, and we'll get other people.
Fine.
Did you
Okay.
respond, Cynthia? I'd love to hear what you
Why
have to
don't
say.
I actually don't, what I've heard from you tonight is that you're not interested in our response.
It's not.
We've got your response.
We've
We've heard your response. All the-
What is your response? What is your response? Our response is, the response is basically that this is a rich community that has excess budget, so therefore we have to poison you. Based on elections from the 1970s. That's your response. It's not adequate.
It's
So we
insanity.
need to get you out of office and find people who will be responsive. It's simple.
I'll try. Somebody used the word intransigence earlier, and you're mischaracterizing the position of the board, which I think I get represented. And that is that you're not seeing intransigence. What you're seeing is clarity on our part, that we are subject to the state law and to the ballot measures. That is just fact.
I see lack of
And
responsibility.
so I want
This is
to
not
add
responsible.
Some advice to you as advocates. And I've got a lot of experience in the arena, political arena, and with advocacy. The appropriate steps for you to take, where you can really make a difference, is, as the lady in the audience said, is to work to change the state law. And when you begin that process, I think there is a role for us to be helpful. Additionally, we would have to call for another ballot measure to overturn the actions of the voters in the 70s. The votes, as I said, are sacred, but the votes can be changed with a new measure.
Why don't you put
And
that
we
on the
can
ballot?
be-
Use your power, do it.
But it's very important, I'm giving you advice as advocates, that that's one path we can take, but the state law is in place. We are absolutely subject to the state law.
Then put fluoride in the water instead of hydrofluorosilicic acid.
Votes are safer because you're saying that the votes don't matter.
They didn't vote. That's not in the state law. The hydrofluorosilicic acid is not in the state law. You guys didn't even know about it 5 months ago when we came in here. I told you what kind of fluoride it was, and you got all mad. You didn't know what it was, and now you're saying you know what's in it. You don't know what's in it. There's mercury. There's tons of metal compounds in it.
You don't know what's in it.
I know what's in it. I've talked to
You've looked at the
scientists.
analysis sheet.
I'll bring it in
Have you
next
looked
time.
at the analysis?
Yes, I have.
When
Not
did
your
you do that?
government-paid analysis sheet. I've looked in many different studies.
Okay.
But I'm sure that one will be fine too.
Anybody-
Bring it in.
Anyone else who would like to speak?
Well, quick question on this. Are there alternatives to the substance that we're using that may be safer?
I don't know about safer, but there are alternatives.
Are we not using them because they're more expensive?
Yes.
We get a discount on the material because it's used by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which is the largest water district in the world. And their scientists agree with us that the product we're using is fine, it's safe, it is meant for this application. It is a refined product, it is not a hazardous waste. It has been fully refined to remove anything in it that would be harmful.
The problem is your owners don't agree with that assessment.
Well, that's your choice.
And
It
there are
comes from China,
but
and
they
the
are-
Chinese won't even use it.
They are your owners, these people. And so they don't agree that this is the safe way. Now, in Marin, we spend a little extra to go get the organic food, right? This is part of who we are. Why don't we spend a little extra and get the more natural form so that your owners won't be so upset about what's in their water? It's not that hard. Also, is there any way that we could change the rule so that, I mean, who do the owners set the rules, or do you guys, for how you bill people? Because maybe if we have too much money, and that's the reason we can't stop fluoridating, maybe we should make payment for water optional for people who don't want fluoride in it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Ooh, there's a good one.
Okay, you've all had your shot. So
I would like to know when you're going to post information on the website or on my water bill that gives me the risks of fluoridation. When are you going to put some information out there?
Yeah, why don't you put it that it's hazardous but it's
It's a question, and I do want to know your thoughts.
we meet the requirements of the law.
That's not answering the question.
Of course it is.
She asked when.
That was a different
When.
question.
That's not the question.
The answer is that we meet the requirements of the law. We put on the bill, we put on the water quality statement, the information that is required by law.
There's a
No,
lot on
we
your
don't.
website that's not
We don't.
required by law.
No, you don't.
There's a lot of information on the website that's not required by law.
Sure.
There is a specific page in our website for dedicated for information on fluoridation.
I've
We
read it.
post all the information that is presented to the board. So this presentation will be posted on our website, and we have a place where there is a direct link to that page.
I did not see Paul Connick's presentation posted, and he was here in May, is that right? Was he, did he make, March? He made a presentation, and that was never posted to your website. I'm sorry.
There was oral presentation. There was nothing beyond oral.
Oh, it needs to be printed in order
Well,
to be published on your
it's
webpage?
got to be something that we can put on the webpage.
I'll have it to you tomorrow. Thank you, sir, and you'll put it on the
Okay.
website. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Final comment. If I'm gonna get the last one.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, can you post the material safety data sheet
Sure.
and the source where you actually
Happy to.
get this
course.
compound? Okay.
Of course.
Are we allowed to know the alternative sources and what the options could be?
What does that mean?
The options, the other compounds that could possibly be added other than the one that you're, cheaper one that you're using?
As I stated earlier, the other compound is sodium fluoride, which is made from hydrofluorosilicic acid.
Why can't we have calcium fluoride, which is the compound that's been studied for?
Because it's not soluble. It's a compound which
But that's the compound that was
it
studied
does not
for.
dissolve in water. So you can't add it to water, okay? It's a particulate. It is not, when you add sodium fluoride, it dissociates into sodium fluoride. When you add calcium fluoride, it's adding a mineral that is bound together as a rock. It'd be the equivalent of adding rocks to the water. It's not going to dissolve.
In other words, calcium fluoride that was
The HFSA, the mechanism that it binds to your
Did
bone.
you hear what she just said? All of the studies that were done on calcium fluoride. There have been no studies done on
the studies that showed
hydrofluorosilicic acid.
positive health effects and safety
That's
were
right.
done
It's only
on
been done on calcium fluoride.
calcium
Seriously.
fluoride, not the compound that we're actually putting in our water.
Thank you.
And if it doesn't dissolve, but we're still within the law, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with
Okay.
that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, item 8A.
So are you for the hydrofluorosilicic acid as well? Or is your study just on fluoride?
I'm a dentist.
Right, so you're for fluoride in the water, but now that you found out it's hydrofluorosilicic acid, are you for that?
I'm for public health, and it works.
What did you take from any of this? Did you?
Well, there's a passionate group that's against fluoride.
Yeah.
Officer, could you give us a hand to help people out of the room?
I think we're making our way fine.
I'm sure. God, the attitude in this group.
Yeah, but it did. Well, and everything was messed up when she went to the bathroom.